there no feeling in you? You have this impossible image of me.
Emily Watson, welcome back to Ireland.
Thank you.
Paul Mescal, Fulcher of the Wallia. What incredibly interesting characters you get to play in this film. Paul, it struck me firstly that having seen you play a parent and after son, interesting to see you play a son again, but you know, you've had that role of the protection of a child, and in this case it's just how far do you go with that? What do you make of the dynamic between mother and son here?
Yeah, I mean, I found that was the central reason that I wanted to do the film. One being that it was going to be with Emily, but the second part being that I just thought that relationship was so brilliantly written, and it never, the minute you thought it was going in one direction or when I was reading it, it would shift. And I feel like there's a degree of like discomfort with that whole relationship, but at the center there's a lot of love there, and I think that adds to the complexity of it for me anyway. It's
very true. It was a very still audience in the Lighthouse last night. Everyone's kind of looking at what's going to happen next. And Emily, it's interesting that we're not spoon-fed as an audience here, you know, we're not given flashbacks, we're left to wonder a lot. And it struck me with your character, she doesn't ask a lot of questions, does she? You know, why are you back from Australia? What went on?
She doesn't want to know too much because she doesn't want to disturb what they have. And they've never really had real conversations. When I got into the cab going from the screening to the pub last night, Paul's dad asked me, how did that come about? How was he that? How did his character, how did he become that? And I think it's that when a child is born and the mother just obsesses and loves them so much that they believe that they are, you know, it's how psychopathic tendencies are brought about because they believe they're more important than their siblings, than their father, that nothing they can do is wrong. And that obviously caused enormous problems in the family to the point where there was violence and he left. And then when he comes back, she comes alive again and it's the love of her life. He's there, he's back. But all those seeds are little bombs waiting to go off.
There's been a claim made by a young woman. Brian says he was at home with you that night. Is that right?
He was, yeah.
And the other thing, Paul, about it was that we're not shown an awful lot. This is very much the aftermath of any abuse or violence. Was that one of the things that attracted you to this project as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I love reading a script where you're not spoon-feeding an audience, as Emily said. You're really asking them to lean in and try to analyse human behaviour in a way that I think is truer to life. Like, it's like, how well do we actually know the people in our family? How well do we know what motivates them? And I think that's also the fun part of the acting. Like, I remember in the 2 weeks rehearsal that we have and in the time leading up to shooting, we spent so much time in the backstory. And for Brian, a lot of the motivating factors were A, what caused him to leave in the first place, and B, what happened to him in Australia. And I don't think the audience will ever get an answer that is and that's also what he is protecting. He doesn't want to give, because if he shares what happened to him in Australia or what happened to him when he left, he becomes weak. And I think there's a male tendency, or definitely in the kind of character that Brian is, that weakness is death, and he just can't concede or be soft, and ultimately that's what, it's kind of a cocktail for disaster, I think.
Yeah, the atmosphere is extraordinary, and even, Emily, in terms of the greyness, I can't help thinking when you were in Angela's Ashes and, you know, it always rains in Limerick, you got a lot of rain in Donegal as well, but it really aided the atmosphere, didn't it? What was it like filming there?
Because we were in isolation, and I've never been away from my family for that long before, and I hope never again since, but we were, 9-10 weeks in that place. It was locked down. We really had it pretty much to ourselves, and the ground, the earth, the water was a character in the film. And these Anna and Celia, the directors, were so adamant about us being in our bodies and being in and of that place, and it really helped. That was, you couldn't help but be immersed in it.
The other character, I think, Paul, is the music. Really struck me last night. I mean, you've your brilliant co-star, Aisling Franciosi, singing. You're even lulling a baby to sleep at one point, and then this very sort of atmospheric, unnerving score. What was it like watching it and hearing the music?
I think the score is one of my favourite things about the film. Like I remember the first time I saw it, and you've got that kind of music that comes in pre the opening credits, and then there's that like moment of percussion just as the credits hit you, and I was like, oh, there's something so cinematic about it. But also, as you said, it is a character. It's not like beautiful for the sake of being beautiful. There's something kind of gothic and unnerving, but at the same time it is beautiful. I think it's the same thing. It's doing a lot of the same work that the landscape is doing. It's beautiful, but it's brutal at the same time.
There's also that rhythmic thing of you know that there is a tragedy coming.
Yeah.
And it's boom, boom, it's unfolding. And it's sort of like the drumbeat of inevitability.
A final question. This film premiered in Cannes and did really well. What was it like to bring it home? And I mean, your mum and dad were there beside you, Paul, last night. Was it a lovely feeling to put it in front of an Irish audience?
I mean, it's the first thing that I thought about whilst making it. Of course, like you want it to like reach as far out into the world as possible, but it is a film that I always imagined seeing here in Dublin for this country, and of course, like for everyone else who needs and should see it. But it was a special moment last night, and to open the festival, and just to see like lots of young people out on the carpet for a film that I think is
quite challenging.
Quite challenging, and I think actually ultimately it's important to me that young people go and see it.
But I think that's the thing about. There's a real sense of a cultural sea change.
Mm-hmm.
Young people want to be challenged and they want to ask questions, which I think is pretty amazing.
Well, congratulations again on 2 extraordinary performances. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
Seems like the whole world has turned upside down.